1942, support and resources arrived on a staggering scale when from across the pond, the American contingent rallied. Over 1.5 million men left the USA, bidding farewell to life as they knew it, to coffee, to baseball, and to loved ones. With photographs folded in pockets, they traveled halfway across the world to join the pursuit of freedom. During a radio message, President Roosevelt led the nation in a prayer that will be forever remembered by the American people. The President of the United States.
Almighty God, our sons, pride of our nation, this day have set upon a mighty endeavor, a struggle to preserve our republic, our religion, and our civilization, and to set free a suffering humanity. They will need thy blessings, for the enemy is strong. He may hurl back our forces, but we shall return again and again. And we know that by thy grace and by the righteous of our cause, our sons will triumph. Some will never return. Embrace these, Father, and receive them, the heroic servants, into thy kingdom. And, O Lord, give us faith. Give us faith in thee, faith in our sons, faith in each other, and faith in our united crusade. Thy will be done, Almighty God. Amen.
This is Robert St. John in the NBC newsroom in New York. Ladies and gentlemen, we may be approaching a fateful hour. All night long, bulletins have been pouring in from Berlin claiming that D-Day is here, claiming that the invasion of Western Europe has begun. Let me read you several of the latest bulletins. One says that a report, unconfirmed by Allied sources, of course, says that heavy fighting is taking place between the Germans and invasion forces on the Normandy Peninsula, about 31 miles southwest of Le Havre. Another bulletin, also from Berlin radio and unconfirmed, says that landing operations against the western coast of Europe from the sea and from the air are stretching over the entire area between Cherbourg and Le Havre, a distance of about 60 miles. I repeat, there is no confirmation. And here's another bulletin just in. DNB, the German agency, says, this is unconfirmed, that the most important airdromes in the area of the Normandy Peninsula of France have been wiped out. Now, I presume that means wiped out by the Allies. As you may have heard on earlier broadcasts, all three German news agencies have begun broadcasting these stories that the invasion is here. But there is no Allied confirmation as yet. The first report came out shortly after midnight, and since then we've been flooded with reports from Berlin. Paris radio, strangely enough, has not confirmed any of these reports. And now we have just been informed that we can expect in a very few seconds, a very important broadcast from the British capital. And so now we take you to London.
The text of communique number 1 will be released to the press and radio of the United Nations in 10 seconds. Repeat, 10 seconds from now. Under the command of General Eisenhower, Allied naval forces, supported by strong air forces, began landing Allied armies this morning on the northern coast of France. The communique will be repeated. Under the command of General Eisenhower, Allied naval forces, supported by strong air forces, began landing Allied armies this morning on the northern coast of France. This ends the reading of communique number 1 from Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is New York, NBC Newsroom again. Men and women of the United States, this is a momentous hour in world history. This is the invasion of Hitler's Europe, the 0 hour of the Second Front. The men of General Dwight Eisenhower are leaving their landing barges, fighting their way up the beaches into the fortress of Nazi Europe. They are moving in from the sea to attack the enemy under a mammoth cloud of fighter planes, under a ceiling of screaming shells from Allied warships. The first news flashes do not say, but a large proportion of this assault is believed to be in the hands of American men. They are making the attack side by side with the British Tommies who were bombed and blasted out of Europe at Dunkirk. Now, at this hour, they are bombing and blasting their way back again. This is the European front, once again being established in fire and blood, not only by the Americans and British, but by many allies in the fight against Axis aggression.
Man, it's amazing to hear NBC News before they started hating America, isn't it? Welcome to Cold War Radio, ladies and gentlemen, live on Spreaker from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr., your host to the Empire City of the South. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Stacy Rush from Atlanta. Good evening, Stacy.
Good evening, Hutch Bailey Jr. and everyone out there listening tonight. I hope everybody is having a wonderful evening and looking forward to the show.
Absolutely. Let's go to the outskirts of Allegheny County and welcome Sal at CWR. Good evening, Sal.
Hey, how's everyone doing? It's great out here. A little bit of rain, of course. Again, it's Pittsburgh, nice and sunny, of course.
Absolutely.
And to having a good show tonight.
All right, please follow me on Spreaker. The email, scrtv@live.com. Cold War Radio patron hotline, 412-206-6208. If you want to listen to the show after the live broadcast, 405media.com. iHeartRadio, who has become one of our larger distributors, as a matter of fact. rdelephant.com, the Cold War Radio app, which is free. YouTube with captions. And if you're on Twitter, use the hashtag Cold War Radio. No telling what you're going to come up with. Please go to steelcityresistance.com where you can catch the research room, become a Cold War Radio patron, which is real important, and subscribe on Subscribestar. If you have a problem with Patreon, you can go to the video page, which shows the video renditions of the audio clips we play. I'd especially recommend that tonight for a clip I'm going to play at the end of the program commemorating last year's 74th anniversary of D-Day. That's a tearjerker, especially if you're a veteran. You can go to the Cold War Radio bunker where we've got some merchandise. If you want to write to the program, it's Cold War Radio, P.O. Box 96022, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 15226.
You are listening to Cold War Radio.
I'll tell you guys, almost as an afterthought, I forgot what a momentous occasion today and tomorrow is. Caught up in all the, Stacy, we were talking before the show a little bit about, and Sal, about the shenanigans going on with the media on Trump's state visit to the UK. It's just been embarrassing. And then you look at the monumental achievement that these young men carried out, young and old. They weren't all young. It's just, I was watching this video that I'm going to play at the end, and I almost broke down in a full cry, man, because I'm thinking these guys did all this, and look at Western Europe and look at the United States now.
I know. And not just that, Hutch, but think about this: when these men have all passed away, and our generation has passed away, will the kids even know it occurred?
Right. I mean, it's so I can't even imagine facing down. I mean, this isn't like, first of all, we didn't know we were going to win at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And to face down that beach for that long, I mean, you know, you're not pulling in on a Jetson mobile. You're coming in on a slow-moving ship. You could see it for hours and hours and hours, days even. And to get off of those landing barges into that steel, into those machine guns, it's just I'm not even going to pretend to imagine. I guess Saving Private Ryan did a pretty good job with it, but I've seen interviews with German machine gunners that pretty much went stark raving mad because it was like shooting fish in a barrel.
Over 6,000 Americans died that day. And
right.
They've been estimated over 10,000 Allied soldiers died that day. It was a horrific scene that people that are still alive cannot and will not forget. It is seared into their brains, and it is a tough price to pay for freedom.
Absolutely. And I'm going to read something in a minute that somebody sent me an email. But first, I want to get some things covered. I want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart for Orlando and Luca upon the passing of April Sheets. The GoFundMe, guys, is up to $46,907. So I don't know how much of an impact we had, but it doesn't matter. I just wanted to put that out there so you know that at least the young man is going to have a solid start. So I pray for them. I hope everything goes all right. And I just wanted to let you guys know all that. We've got some things coming up, but while we're on this topic, I want to get it while it's still hot here. Let me just go to an email that I got sent that was kind of talks about what we're talking about right now, what you just said, Stacy. And it's sad, but it's correctable. We just need to do it. Bill W., who's probably in the chat room, or he will be, sent an email. A very intelligent article was written by a college student by the name of Alyssa Algren, who's in graduate school for her MBA. It's a short article, but definitely worth a read. I would love to see this go viral. My generation is blind to the prosperity around us. I'm sitting in a small coffee shop near Nokomis, trying to think of what to write about. I scroll through my news feed on my phone, looking at the latest headlines of Democratic candidates calling for policies to, quote, fix the so-called injustices of capitalism. I put my phone down and continue to look around. I see people talking freely, working on their MacBooks, ordering food that they get in an instant, seeing cars go by outside, and it dawned on me. We live in the most privileged time in the most prosperous nation, and we've become completely blind to it. Vehicles, food, technology, freedom to associate with whom we choose. These things are so ingrained in our American way of life, we don't give them a second thought. We are so well off here in the United States that our poverty line begins 31 times above the global average. 31 times. Virtually no one in the United States is considered poor by global standards. Yet, in a time where we can order a product off Amazon with one click and have it at our doorsteps the next day, we are unappreciative, unsatisfied, and ungrateful. Our unappreciation is evident as the popularity of socialist policies among my generation continues to grow. Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez La Cucaracha recently said to Newsweek, talking about the millennial generation, an entire generation, which is now becoming one of the largest electorates in America, came of age and never saw American prosperity. Never saw American prosperity. Let that sink in. When I first read that statement, I thought to myself, that was quite literally the most entitled and factually illiterate thing I have ever heard in my 26 years on this earth. Many young people agree with her, which is entirely misguided. My generation is being indoctrinated by a mainstream narrative to actually believe we have never seen prosperity. I know this firsthand. I went to college. Let's just say I didn't have the popular opinion, but I digress. Why then, with all the overwhelming evidence around us, evidence that I can even see sitting at a coffee shop, do we not view this as prosperity? We have people who are dying to get into our country, people around the world destitute and truly impoverished, yet we have a young generation convinced they've never seen prosperity, and as a result, elect politicians dead set on taking steps toward abolishing capitalism. Why? The answer is this, and I've said this many times, ladies and gentlemen, I just said it a little different way. My generation has only seen prosperity. We have no contrast. We didn't live in the Great Depression or live through 2 world wars, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, or see the rise and fall of socialism and communism. We don't know what it's like to live without the internet, without cars, without smartphones. We don't have a lack of prosperity problem. We have an entitlement problem, an ungratefulness problem, and it's spreading like a plague. Stacy, I think that about wraps it up.
Yeah, I don't think any of us could have said that any better ourselves. But, when you don't have to struggle for anything in your life, when everything is given to you, and believe me, as I sit here and say that, I'm guilty of doing that for my kids, as well. I've just had a conversation with my daughter tonight about her not wanting an iPhone 6. She wants a more updated version, and feeling like she's so deprived because she's going to get the lesser iPhone. They've really never had to struggle with anything. But when you have the long game Democrats who've infested our education systems from primary school through college, teaching American kids that America is a terrible, horrible place. This is the result that you get. And I'm just grateful that we have young women like the person who wrote that article still out there among these kids. And I really do think it is more of a millennial thing. And maybe I'm in my bubble like we accuse the DC folks of being, but I see my son and I see his friends, and they have a different mentality. They're hard workers. They don't think that everything should be given to them, and maybe it's just our small pocket over here in the world in which I live. But I'm hopeful that Generation Z might turn the corner where the millennials have completely fallen under the situation that the young lady who wrote the article writes about.
Now, Sal, I said it. I've been saying it for a long time. I used to use the analogy that there's too much food in the country, and because that's when you get basic down to human needs. That's one of the top 3.
Yeah, Hush, but what we also need to realize, and Stacy too, I'll add you into this as well. What is this all about? It's about personal responsibility. It's about making a choice for yourself. That is what a free market is about. It's about freedom. It's about individual choices. It's about hard work and getting rewarded for that hard work. If you want an iPhone 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 or 11 or 20 or whatever's out, it's not going to be given to you. You have to work hard for it.
See, the thing is this goes deeper than the way the kids feel. This is something that is being thrust on them on purpose. It is programming them to think that their country sucks, and therefore it's empowering the socialists and the communists and the jihadists to take over, to get their vote, basically, and it's working, and it's something that I think. I know you have kids, I have kids, and it's hard if you don't. I think what happened. I think the reason, Stacy, between the millennials and whatever the hell the next generation's called, what is it, Z?
Z. Yeah.
I think that at some point in the last 10 years, a whole lot of Stacy's, Hutch's, and Sal's woke the hell up and realized that we need to start talking to our kids. And I don't think we did it before that. I know I didn't. I did, about don't play with matches and things like that. But, I never really got into the ideology. And by God, you have to, or it'll suck them right in.
It does. I mean, I 100% agree. And I think I've shared this story with you guys before. My kids grow up in a conservative household with a very outspoken mom. And I remember threatening to go up to my son's school when they were having this water walk, where they were having the kids walk a mile with 2 milk jugs filled with water so that they could experience just a small portion of what people in Africa and other countries have to experience with walking, and carrying water from, a lake or a stream or a river to their village. And he had to keep track of his usage of water, the entire time. And I was for the week so that they could understand how much water they waste. And I mean, it is such an indoctrination. And I told Tyler, I'm like, you put on there that we've got a tankless water heater and you run that water while you're brushing your teeth and getting your towels and eating your dinner, and then you decide to jump into the shower about 20 minutes later. I said, driver crazy, be honest. And it's not that I don't want them to appreciate what occurs in other countries, but I don't want them to feel guilty about the way in which we have been able to live here in the United States, and that it is for a very good reason. It is for the sacrifices that people have made before us. And that's why we have the ability to have the things that we have. And the innovation that we have is through the freedom and liberty and capitalism and things of that nature. But you're 100% right. I mean, I don't always do a good job of it. I think the problem with Republicans is that we live our lives and we don't sit around and bellyache about everything and try and get over on the system and teach, victimhood status. We live our lives. And I think that that's the thing that's got to change, is we have to relate our lives back into the people who sacrifice for the lives that we have, and try and help our kids understand that.
And Sal, I think the key word there, and what I was trying to say, I wasn't knocking what you said. What you said is 100% right. But the point here is that a third party, there's other people that are influencing or weak-minded because of their age or youth. And I think that they honestly do try to make them feel guilty. I don't know if you ever got this from your kids, but we went through the phase here of not necessarily flushing the toilet if there's nothing solid in there. And I was like, oh, hold on. Hold the phone. I don't know what you're doing here, but there's 3 magnificent big-ass rivers right out there. There's no shortage of water here. You flush that thing every time. It just, they feel guilty, like they're wrong.
If there's water to flush the toilet, you should flush it.
Amen.
But
all right, I hear you loud and clear, Hutch. But along Stacy's choices is that there, and along with you, Hutch, there isn't an endless supply of water.
Of course
we
not.
all have water bills. We got to pay them. There's some responsibility to that. You can't let the water run for 20 minutes while you're taking care of your other business, and then decide to hop in the shower and think that it's covered. There's a consequence to that choice. You got to turn off the faucet.
Yeah, it's the money. I mean, but when you look at it, if you look at the ridiculousness of the whole thing, everything that comes through your tap, even if you do consume it, it's going right back in the river. You know what I mean? That's a loop. That's a loop. That's not something that ends at your house. You know what I mean? It goes down the drain. It goes into the treatment plant. It goes right back in the south side.
Well, and the thing is that I have no problems with the teaching of what other countries experience, if then on the flip side, we're able to turn that into a positive of how fortunate we are in this country that we don't have to deal with these types of situations and why that is. I don't have any problem. I want my kids to understand that other people struggle. Like you mentioned before, that the poverty level in the United States is well above the poverty level, throughout the world. But they do make them feel so guilty about everything, and I think that that's part of the reason that people don't talk about real issues. Because you're made to feel guilty if you have a differing opinion, or now with the help of social media, you're ostracized if you have a differing opinion, or you're silenced if you have a differing opinion. And I think that that's the biggest issue is that it's not about teaching or understanding other cultures and other environments. It's about guilt and shaming, and that's what they've done to our children through the education system.
That's so right, and this is especially prevalent in the white community. White people are excellent at being shamed. I mean, they can be shamed all day long. There's people that walk around with their head between their legs because they're afraid to say anything, especially when it comes to race or something of that nature, or sexuality. They get to the point where they've been brainwashed, and I'm talking about there's some people on the right that are like that too. Tucker Carlson, I got an article coming up about him if we get to it, but this is something that you have to teach yourself not to do. Don't worry about what anybody else says. They're not going to worry about what you say. Now obviously I understand you want to protect your livelihood. That's a damn shame that we've gotten that far, but we are there, and they've done that expertly. All these people that think that America sucks, all these young people, they're quick to want to shut somebody's free speech down or lock somebody up or make somebody go bankrupt or whatever. I mean, Bette Midler, basically asked people to stab the president. I mean, it's to that point. I know we're in high gear right now, but I have to get back. I have to get this train back on the tracks. We could talk like this all night, no question.
I know.
That's why when you said before the show what you said, I was like, don't worry about it. You know how this works. We can sit there and talk all night. But I do want to say this. There's not a whole lot of people listening right now, but it's that time of year, ladies and gentlemen. We're coming up on an election year, and we have some opportunities coming up. The Road to Majority is going to be held in Washington, D.C. this month, the 26th to the 29th, at the Omni Shoreham Hotel in Washington, D.C. And there's going to be, let me just read their statement here. The Faith and Freedom Coalition Road to Majority Conference is the premier national event for people of faith and conservative activists. We expect over 2,000 grassroots activists from across the country to gather in Washington, D.C. for Road to Majority 2019. Attendees will leave Road to Majority better prepared and energized to mobilize voters of faith to bring about a pro-family majority in Washington and in their states through training for voter registration and voter education campaigns, get out the vote, lobbying, media relations, building a precinct organization, and utilizing social media. Past speakers include President Donald J. Trump, Vice President Pence, Mitch McConnell, I hope he misses it. Paul Ryan, I hope he misses it. But anyway, there's going to be a lot of people there, and we want to send Mona Salama to that. I want to try, and I hate to keep hitting this on you guys, but I want to try to raise $600 before June 6th. We can go June 26th. We can go for less than that, but the number that she quoted wasn't high enough for me. I've been in that area. Everything costs a lot. I don't want her to have to ride on the top of a train somewhere to get there. So let's, if you're interested in having Cold War Radio have a presence at the Faith and Freedom Coalition's Road to Majority, you can go to patreon.com/CWR. Any donations I receive between now and the end of June will go toward that trip. And I'll let you know where we are, and I'll bring Mona on the program. If you have any questions or different things you'd like her to cover, we'll talk to her straight to her. And anyway, there it is. Stacy, these events are great. You can't underestimate the power that they have and the networking capability that that'll give our show.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's a great opportunity to get the Cold War Radio name out there, and Mona, to really get some great interviews. I like these conferences that are oriented around grassroots activism, because we're going to have a fight on our hands, as good as everything is in the economy, and that Trump has been able to accomplish. We need more support in the House and in the Senate to back him up. And we need those grassroots advocates out there. So the more connections that we can make out there, the better, I think, for all of us.
Absolutely. So patreon.com/CWR. The link is in the chat room. You can always ask Rocky, or if you're listening to the podcast, you can also go back. If you're listening on Spreaker, you can go back to the chat room and find it. I'll put something on the website as well. But I'm going to see, if we can. We're in this transition between WHBJ and Cold War Radio. We lost a lot of listeners through that time period. Not necessarily listeners, but live listeners. A little bit of confusion. I changed the website. I changed the iTunes so people will know where we are. But in any event, it's a good deal, and it's going to be cost effective. I know Mona works hard, and she doesn't inflate things. You know what I mean? She's honest when it comes to what it's going to cost. And Stacy and I both know that it can be exorbitant. It can be big time money. All right, so let's. That's that. I want to. Now that you say, about this coming up, there's a Quinnipiac poll. They're starting already, ladies and gentlemen, is my point. I don't want you to, don't get depressed. The motive behind polling right now, almost all polling is left wing. And the motive behind polling is to separate you from the president. So a Quinnipiac poll comes out. Biden surges to lead in Texas over Trump. Joe +4. I mean, you read that, as I did, and you're like, damn. But then, if you're a activist like I am, you go back to Quinnipiac and say, what did Quinnipiac say in June of 2015, before the presidential election? With 20% of Republican voters, Donald Trump is the clear leader in the crowded Republican presidential primary field, but he trails any of the three leading Democrat contenders by wide margins in general election matchups, according to Quinnipiac University national poll released today. Now, this is 1 month later. It's in July of 2015. Trump's 20% is the largest tally for a Republican contender in any national poll by the independent Quinnipiac University poll. Behind Trump are Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker with 13% and former Governor Jeb Bush with 10%. No other Republican tops 6%, and 12% are undecided. Trump also tops the no way list, as 30% of Republican voters say they would definitely not support him. New Jersey Governor Christopher Christie is next at 15%, with Bush at 14%. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton gets 55% of Democratic voters nationwide, with 17% for Bernie Sanders of Vermont and 13% for Vice President Joe Biden. No other candidate tops 1%. Clinton tops the Democrats' no-way list with 9%, followed by former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley and former Rhode Island Governor Lincoln Chafee at 8% each. They love him and they hate him. Donald Trump triumphs on the stump so far, but do voters really, all caps, want him? Maybe not so much, said Tim Malloy, assistant director of the Quinnipiac University poll. The good news for Secretary Hillary Clinton is that she is over 50% among Democrats and has a double-digit lead over Trump. The not-so-good news is that she is locked in anyway. You get it. Don't believe the bull. It's all bull, and it's all designed to take you away from the president.
It absolutely is. And I saw that today on Drudge, and I just laughed. I laughed, and I thought, you know what? Not going to look at any of these polls. It's all complete BS. And you know what? If any of those states are thinking, yeah, let's go back to the Obama-Biden years, have at it. The rest of us are going to have nothing to do with it. absolutely nothing to do with it. The only way the Democrats win in 2020 is if they cheat. And so we do need to make sure that we are outvoting in droves, because do not put it past them. They are going to cheat. We just have to make sure there is so many more Republicans and newly converted Democrats to support Trump in 2020 so we can take this home.
No question about it. And Sal, something else came out. Anything I see in the media right now, I'm looking more at the media than I am really the story. I'm trying to see where they are, and it's clear to me that CNN and probably the rest of the media is right on board with this communist takeover of the Democrat Party. I want you to listen to coverage of the media finding out that Joe Biden claimed to have marched in the civil rights march. And I'm not so interested in the story. I want you to listen to the commentators. And I'll just translate this before I even play it. This is CNN sticking a knife in Joe Biden's back.
Eye-opening lead in a New York Times profile of Joe Biden's 1988 presidential campaign, the first time he ran for president. He lied to voters, according to the New York Times, quoting aides of Biden's, about having marched in the civil rights movement. This is Biden making this false claim in 1987.
When I marched in the civil rights movement, I did not march with a 12-point program. I marched with tens of thousands of others to change attitudes.
And the New York Times reports, quote, more than once, advisors had gently reminded Mr. Biden of the problem with this formulation. He had not actually marched during the civil rights movement, and more than once, Mr. Biden assured them that he understood and kept telling the story anyway. That is really, really weird.
It is, and the story was a reminder that in that 88 race, he was one of the younger candidates in the race. He was 44 years old. He was the new generation, but, if you haven't read the book of What It Takes about the 1988 campaign, rich chapters of Joe Biden and others, but it does point out a problem, a challenge for Joe Biden. Has he fixed that issue? When he gets very comfortable out on the stump speaking and other things, he has tended to embellish. He has tended to, make things sound slightly rosier than they are. Now, his aides went back to say, look, he was in office marching for the idea of civil rights, but was not actually marching in the streets. But that would not fly.
Listen to him laughing.
That he was supporting civil rights. But I'm saying that in today's
that's not what the word marching means
on Twitter. Okay.
I know, you're just telling what they said.
Right,
but
in the age of Twitter today, Instagram, there would be pictures of him not marching. That's so right. You cannot get away with that in this moment. So that's his big challenge. Yeah. Can he modernize himself, and has he sort of brushed away all those old tendencies he had that ultimately ended to him dropping out before the Iowa caucuses by because he plagiarized a speech.
But that is exactly the kind of story that is a picture-perfect moment for a debate, right? If I am a candidate to say to Joe Biden, you lied about marching in the civil rights.
Mr. Bernie Sanders, who actually did march.
And likes to talk about it a lot, right. Or some of the others who have very substantial records on civil rights, even though they may be younger candidates. That is why I keep saying the debates are going to be so consequential, because you will see those kinds of moments come up.
Okay, Sal, so there it is. CNN's throwing Biden under the bus. I wonder who they're going to go for.
That's a really good question, because, I don't know. I have no clue. Are they trying to just get this out of the way now? Is this a strategy for them, getting all these gaffes out of the way? Is that maybe the game plan? I don't know what their game plan is. I mean, obviously,
that's a good point. I didn't think of it that way. That's a real good point.
Maybe this is their way to, get the skids greased for him, get it out of the way, make it trivial, kind of laugh about it when it's very serious. I mean, if it's insulting, in my opinion.
Stacy, I'm
like that.
I'm not dead set in my mind yet at all that Biden's going to be the nominee.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that is a good point, Sal, that you just made, that they could be trying to get it out of the way. But I have a little bit different take on it, in that I think that the media is so far in the camp for the very progressive socialist Democrat candidates that are running, that I think they want to destroy Joe Biden. I think they do not want anyone who is perceived as a centrist. Now, I think we all know that right now he's probably leading in the polls because he has the most name recognition. But let's take a look at that. And let's say if you're a Democrat and you're not a crazy Democrat, which, let's be honest, what is it, about 27% are these crazy leftists, who want to go down the socialist route. A lot of Democrats are still just in that, oh, Republicans are racist. I can't possibly vote for a Republican. I want to vote for somebody that I perceive as a centrist. I'm not saying that Joe Biden is one. I'm saying he's a little bit more pragmatic than the leftist candidates that he's running against. So I don't know if they are so far out of touch with Democrat voters in general. I think they align themselves with the far left, and I think the media wants to sink Joe Biden. But I think only time will tell if he can, make it through this, and there are enough Democrat voters who are still in that camp where they just can't foresee themselves voting for a Republican, that they would support a Joe Biden nomination. I don't see it happening personally. I think it's going to be somebody from the left. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be Bernie Sanders either. I think it's probably going to be like a Kamala Harris or what's the other, Pocahontas.
Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren. I'm getting old. Her name escapes me, but that's kind of
You're
what.
Not as old
my
as she
feeling
is. I mean, that woman is nuts. And the thing is, and I've said this many times. I don't know if they have research, because I don't see how they could. That many Democrat Americans are communists like that. I know there's some, and I know there's younger voters that are just too stupid to know what they're voting for. I mean, I hate to be harsh, but that's what it is.
It is true.
And I think the average guy that lives on your street that's Democrat, his kids might be in the military or whatever. He's invested in this country, and some of the things. I mean, when you look at the whack jobs, why isn't half of the country women up in arms about these men taking over their sports? I mean,
I know. I cannot get over that, Hutch. That drives me almost as crazy as skinny jeans.
Yeah.
I mean, I am not kidding you. It is like my biggest pet peeve as of late. I'm like, where are the women? They are going to make themselves obsolete in sports if they keep supporting this BS, having men compete, transitioning men compete in their sports. It drives me nuts. I cannot get over it. But Hutch, they all in the primaries, I think it's all about getting money, right? I think it's all about, they're trying to appeal to the donors, and they know that the donors are going to go after the most far left progressive candidate that they can get. And, we all knew who Barack Obama was when he ran, but when he ran the general election, he tried to portray himself as a centrist. The thing is that I don't think these candidates, I think they're so in their bubble and they're so surrounded by the mainstream media who are in their camp that I think they truly believe that a majority of Americans buy into their socialist narrative BS, and we don't. So I say nominate them. I say run to the left, because I think this is going to be the first election where you do not see them move to the center. I think they're going to come out and show their colors for who they are. We want to kill your babies up until the 9th month because abortion is health care. We want to welcome all these illegals into the country and no border wall. And I think they're going to lose in a landslide in 2020.
And we want to turn your young men into young women. And we want to denut them so badly that they'll never be able to defend the country again. That's where that all goes.
We will never have another D-Day ever with what they're doing to the men in our country.
Go ahead, Sal.
And we want you to turn in all your firearms.
Absolutely.
Amen.
No way you can fight back. And you look at just in my little microcosm here, I've got a mayor, that won the Cold War, man. We got a communist sitting in Pittsburgh that now wants to take he wants to divest all of the pension plans of city workers, take the oil business out of those investments. So now he wants to bankrupt everybody that ever worked for the city, because what are you going to replace that with? You know, especially in a gas-rich place like we live in right now. And, you know, the whole thing, the whole social justice, and especially when you get into the sexual perversion, don't these people, or they obviously don't, look in any socialist country and see how homosexuals are treated. You turn this country 100% socialist, and they'll start looking for them to do abortions on them.
And let me guys give you guys a little bit of background, and I can't repeat this very often because, you know, I was basically threatened with not doing conservative media anymore for my job.
Oh, be careful.
But let me just, whenever you sit around and you wonder, you know, what is that business doing? Why are they like Gillette? Let's look at Gillette.
Ugh.
Why is Gillette having a man show his transgender son how to shave when everybody who buys Gillette razors is like, what the heck? You know, the reason that they're doing this is because social justice warriors are now in the investment sector. Yeah. They are now in the investment sector. They are now picking investments based on their social justice warrior views. God. And so they refuse to invest in gun companies. They refuse to invest in tobacco. They refuse to invest in Gillette unless they are gay friendly. They refuse. So make no mistake about it. That is what is happening. And they have now gotten into big business through very wealthy people who are no longer willing to say, hey, here's my money, take it and invest it in what you see fit in, you know, whatever, you know, company is going to make me the most money for my return. I do not want to invest in anyone who is perceived as a sexist company. I do not want to invest in any company that doesn't have, you know, gay marriage and spouse support in their human, you know what I mean?
No, I do. So I know exactly what you're saying.
That is what is occurring. So anytime you are sitting around going, what the heck is going on? It's always about the money. And now the social justice warriors are involved in investing, and that's about as much as I can say.
And, you know, the sad part about it too, Sal, is that whatever given cause we're talking about, these people, these money people, and it's not just money, but that's the root of it, they don't give a damn about homosexual people, man. No, this is about destroying our economy and taking us down a couple notches. That's what this is all about. I don't have any problem with what anybody does. I've said that 1,000 times, and I'm done apologizing. The hell with that. If I see something funny, I'm going to say it. You know, and I don't care what you do. But when you start manipulating stuff like this, we're watching a company here in Pittsburgh, a local company that's bigger than local, but it started here, Dick's Sporting Goods. Dick's Sporting Goods, when one of these shootings happened, they decided to take all the semi-automatic rifles that had a plastic forehand grip or a magazine that was bigger than 2 rounds and take it off the shelves. And guess what's happening, Sal, with Dick's? They're going bankrupt.
Well, you just go and buy your firearms somewhere else. It's as simple as
that. That's it.
You know, you take your money and walk in somewhere else.
It's bigger than that, though. I mean, it truly is bigger than that, because at some point we're not going to have another place to go to buy our firearms. And that is what their goal is overall. It is overall to make companies like Dick's so afraid that they are not going to be invested in because they carry firearms, or because they don't have unisex bathrooms or what have you. And that is their goal. And I agree with you. Yes, we can take our money and buy firearms from other companies, but they play the long game, and that is what we miss so much as Republicans. They play the long game, and eventually it's going to get to a point where we have fewer and fewer choices when they're going down this route with the investment strategy.
They took out Remington. They're going after the companies too, the gun producers. I mean, they're trying to sue them for everybody that gets shot with a Remington. They want to blame it on them, and it's not just Remington. There's other ones. You look at New England. New England used to be the cradle for firearms manufacturers. If it wasn't for New England, we would have never won World War II. You know, I mean, and now they don't even, these companies are can't do business in New England. You know, it's I know what you're saying, Sal, and you're right. We have to. It's one of the powers that we have left. But when they start coming down on MasterCard and the banks,
exactly.
It's like,
well, if you think about this, like Steven Crowder, I heard his YouTube channel was demonetized today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, I mean, how it's as if, you know, people on the right can't make a living speaking, you know, truth from a conservative perspective. And you have MasterCard, you know, dropping, we won't take payments for Remington. I mean, this is beginning to be absurd. And I wish I was smart enough to know, you know, could we start up another payment method for, you know, these organizations? And I do think overall that is where we will go as a country, is that there will be alternatives, because we do have, you know, we have innovation in this country, and someone's going to figure out, you know what, I'll go take all the conservative business out there as a payment method.
But but the ownership changes so often. You look initially when I first started using it, the creator and owner of PayPal was a keynote speaker at the RNC, a gay man, by the way, that ran PayPal, and now it's run by some communist. You know, that's why I have to say at the beginning of the show, you can also go to Subscribestar, because Patreon has defunded a bunch of people. And that's all we're going to talk about on that.
And that too gets me a little bit riled up. So what does it these days? It's getting ridiculous.
Oh, boy, I'll tell you. Anyway, at least we're aware of it. We see what's going on. And that's very important, because that is how, Sal, that they normally get all these things through, is because, as Stacy said earlier in the program, we're trying to live our lives while they're doing this. This is their life.
Yeah, and come back to the pension issue, you know, that's a major issue for a lot of states. A lot of states have underfunded pensions. And why are we injecting political views into something that is simply an investment decision? Why do political views override that? And why should, you know, one side political view take a control over the other? I don't understand it.
Well, I think one of the things is what I just said, and a lot of people don't realize that. I do this show 3 days a week, 3 nights a week, and you guys do. And you know, we were dabbling with the radio station for a while there, but normally I'm retired, and you guys aren't. So normally most of your day revolves around, you know, earning your keep and doing what you got to do. Well, the thing about the Democrats is when you get people, and it's farther than the Democrats, it's farther than America. There's foreign people involved in this, as you could see with the Trump fiasco, with the Australians, the Italians, the English, and everybody else that was involved in that coup. These people do this, that's their living. You know, you get somebody like George Soros, or for the Republicans, the Chamber of Commerce and the Koch brothers, you get these people, they can say, you know what, you don't have to go to work. Here's this every month. Just continue to do this. And that's what they do. They have a huge full-time workforce that is at work every minute of every day trying to dismantle this country. And that's a hell of an adversary. But you know what? So was Nazi Germany. You know, I think that we can do what we have to do, but it just takes us a little longer on the uptake, I guess, sometimes. But I think
I just want people out on the streets or something, or I want Republican social justice warriors. You could pay me to, you know, to protest. Right. You know what I mean? I'm like, if someone would start that organization, I'd do it. You know, it's like. That's what they do, and it's so frustrating. And I just don't know what it's going to take, Hutch, to get, you know, people to stop doing what we do every day, which is live our lives and get more active like the Dems do. I mean, they have this crap down to a science.
Well, one thing that's very helpful is that in the age of Donald J. Trump and a whole lot of regular people that never engaged in politics before are on our side. And at a Some Trump supporters like that showed up to a Sleepy Joe Biden's campaign event in New Hampshire with a bed. They showed up with a bed and a sign.
That's awesome.
The sign read, "You ran for president so many times, you must be tired, Sleepy Joe." Yeah. We have to get a sense of humor over here. You know what I mean? How many years have we gone with Jeb Bushes and people that are just so cardboard?
I know. And I get so tired of this. Oh, we have to take the high road. No, we don't. We need to get down and dirty and play and pull out all the stops against them. This is war right now.
It is.
You know, we can, once we win our country back and we get it back on track and things are moving in the right direction, we can take the high road again. But they count on us taking the high road, just like they're counting on, Trump to take the high road and not pursue the investigation against the investigators. But you know what? He's not going to do it. And I hope the Republicans eventually learn, but apparently they can't, because when I hear that we had any Republicans voting for that amnesty bill,
Jesus Christ.
I want to go and I want to bitch slap them is what I want to do.
Yeah, I know. And by the way, thank you, Rocky. The individual that created PayPal was named Peter Thiel, and a good friend of the president. And he's gone. I don't know where he is now. But if anybody, speaking to what you just said, Stacy, if anybody thinks that Fox News is still credible, then please answer me, why is Karl Rove still on the payroll? Why is Karl Rove still there? He hasn't gotten anything right in the last 15 years, and he's still on the payroll. There's your Fox News for you. I'm sorry for those of you that love it, but it's weak, man. It's done. It's a done deal to me. It's just, it's sad, but there it is. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of hour number 1 coming up. Stacy, how can people get in touch with you, and any final comments?
You guys, it is always such a pleasure to be with you. And I will try, and then, next coming months to stay on for 2 hours. But I appreciate you having me with you. I enjoy it with you and Sal every Wednesday. You guys can reach me easiest on Twitter at DiscoveringMe40, America for Stacy. And I'm going to check out some of these other social media platforms and try and figure out how to re-engage. It's so hard to rebuild, but I'm going to try. And once I create some profiles on different platforms, I'll let you know where I'm at. And again, I think that that is it. You guys just keep positive and keep up the good fight, and I will see you next Wednesday.
All right, Stacy, thanks for coming back. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Hutch. Talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.
See you, Stacy.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Cold War Radio, live from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, via Spreaker and many other platforms. We got more clips and a whole lot more coming back with Sal and Hutch Bailey Jr. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Oh, can't play that one anymore. Cold War Radio.
My name is Ronald Reagan. Last year, the contributions of 16 million Americans to the crusade for freedom made possible the World Freedom Bell, symbol of hope and freedom to the communist-dominated peoples of Eastern Europe, and built this powerful 135,000-watt Radio Free Europe transmitter in Western Germany. This station daily pierces the Iron Curtain with the truth, answering the lies of the Kremlin and bringing a message of hope to millions trapped behind the Iron Curtain. Grateful letters from listeners smuggled past the secret police express thanks to Radio Free Europe for identifying communist quislings and informers by name. The Crusade for Freedom is your chance and mine to fight communism. Join now by sending your contributions to General Clay, Crusade for Freedom, Empire State Building, New York City. Or join in your local community.
Ding, 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 ding. There he sits inside your local coffee shop, sporting a man bun and facial hair. Somehow he believes, although he has no job, that by his 30s he will be a millionaire. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Gotta love millennials. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Gotta love millennials. She posts lots of selfies on her Instagram with a quote that's inspirational. Hopes to change the world while wearing yoga pants, armed with her dreams and knowledge of essential oils. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Gotta love millennials. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Gotta love millennials. 27 years old, trying to make it on their own. Maybe start by leaving your parents home, but maybe we're just wrong. Criticism isn't easy for their ears. They feel like they know most everything. See, they grew up with undeserved confidence, 'cause they got trophies just for participating. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Gotta love millennials. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Gotta love millennials. In a couple of years, we will have to pass the torch. In a couple of years, they will be in charge, and one will be our president. Oh no. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Gotta love millennials. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A-L. Please pray for millennials.
AOC, how I explain her? She really make my brain hurt. She always need a Twitter page to save her. I'm really sick of her. She always spitting gibberish. I wasn't gonna diss you till you talked about my militants. You said my veterans are better off just sitting in line outside the VA when the waiting has been killing us. We wanna visit a private doctor or physician, but you say the VA isn't broken, so don't go fix it in. Girl, you tripping? You go tell that to the veterans. That in front of the veterans affair without the medicine. This is nonsense, it's not about law or politics. This is for all my veterans sweating out in the hottest. If you really are that somebody who never went and fought the sick, how could you ever talk about medical? We ought to get. I see you move your lips, but it never make no sense. You need to play your documentary on Netflix. Cause like CBS, AOC don't know ABCs. VETs are not 1, 2, 3, we just be seen. So you can cut the script that you read for the public. And with a puppet in front of us fronting it really make me sick of AOC. Yeah, you know me. Sick of AOC. Yeah, you know me. You sick of AOC. Yeah, you know me. This one my VETs. Every last on me.
Honoring Cold War veterans. After World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union began a 46-year-long struggle for political and military supremacy known as the Cold War. Soldiers of both sides did not do battle directly, though thousands of Americans were killed, wounded, or went missing in operations during the Cold War, separate from Korea and Vietnam. During these tense relations with the Soviet Union, generations of American servicemen and women stood ready at ambiguous, politically sensitive listening posts, anticipating the first strike. Neither side wanted to unleash the world-changing devastation that brought them to the point of mutually assured destruction. Standing fierce in the face of an overwhelming enemy, these veterans answered the call, drafted or volunteered, as America needed its guardians of freedom, and they were there. The U.S. government has never formally recognized the Cold War or its veterans.
Mr. Gorbachev. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Many Americans died in operations that remain, even to this day, unacknowledged. That entailed heroism and loss that have yet to be revealed to a grateful nation. We should remember and honor those whose sacrifice brought about a victorious conclusion to the Cold War, to the enormous betterment of the United States and the world.
Because a considerable part of the Cold War was covert, 20 million veterans served without fanfare or appreciation. Cold War veterans have been denied respect, remembrance, and recognition for too long. It is past time for our country to say thank you.
We are here to change that. By awarding a Cold War Service Medal to the veterans, they shall no longer be ignored. We are asking for your help and would like you to write
Don't make me do that. Dance, sucker. Get close to
All right, welcome back to Cold War Radio, ladies and gentlemen. I almost got tricked there at the end of that clip. She asked you to write to President Obama. We don't want to do that, but the message is the same nonetheless. We're trying to get Mona Salama, ladies and gentlemen, to the Road to Majority in Washington, D.C., June 26th to the 29th. I'd like to raise at least $600 to get her there. So go to patreon.com/Charlie Whiskey Romeo, CWR, and all donations up until that time will go toward getting her to that event. If you listened to the coverage that we had during CPAC, you'll see that it was well worth the donations. I appreciate that, and I hope we can get her there. I do. And we'll see how that goes. The Cold War message is pretty important, man. There's a whole lot of people, myself not included, because I've served in other contingencies, but there were a lot of people that their entire military service, some with full careers in the United States military, did it entirely during the Cold War and were called upon to do things in Germany, especially on the Czechoslovakian border, in Korea, especially on the demilitarized zone of the 38th parallel, and in countries that were adjacent to countries where hot skirmishes were going on during the Cold War, such as Cambodia, Thailand, several other places. I mean, just innumerable. We were in way too many places at one time, but we were there, and there was people, our people were there, and they have very little precedence when it comes to the VA and things like that. We pretty much ripped them off, and I find that horrible. But anyway, there you go. That's just my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. So I'd like to try to get Mona to this event. Let's see what we can do. We'll see if it's still possible to send people to these things. I think it is. Sal, I want to get into a couple things. We're going to change gears a little bit. I want to get into what's going on with the communists in our government, the people that orchestrated a coup d'etat, really, and the aftermath of that. I don't think there's a couple organizations that I don't think realize what's coming. And one of them is the Clinton people and the people involved in the FBI and the dossier and all this. But the other is Google and Facebook. I don't think they realize what they're getting ready to get. They're getting ready to get an exam that they've never had before by the Federal Trade Commission. So we'll see on that. But I want to focus right now on Joe DeGeneva, former federal prosecutor. This guy, I get a little nervous because I'm feeling, and you haven't really been on the show, but there was a time when I adored Trey Gowdy until I figured him out. And I have the same feeling about Joe DeGeneva that I had with Trey Gowdy before I figured him out. And that's not good, because I was so hopeful listening to the things that Gowdy said, not realizing at the time that after he said them, that was the end of the story. There was nothing after that. It was just he, smoked Hillary Clinton on Benghazi, and when that episode was over, the whole thing was over and nobody talked about it anymore. I hope that's not what's happening with Joe DeGeneva, but let's listen to him talk about the future.
Joe DeGeneva and former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Victoria Tunsing, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter. Joe, we will begin with you and where we are today, because I think the Steele announcement that he is going to start talking could blow this part of it wide open.
Well, he's obviously made a strategic decision because he's going to be interviewed by John Durham. It's not the Inspector General from the Department of Justice who's going to talk to him, because he doesn't have any reason to talk to Mr. Horowitz. He's going to talk to John Durham and his people. So there's obviously some sort of deal that's been worked out. This is great news, but according to some reports, there are limitations on his testimony. I can't believe that Durham would agree to such limitations. But this is what's important. He has to tell the truth to Durham, because even though his testimony will be given overseas, he can be indicted in the United States if he lies to Durham. So I assume he's going to tell the truth, because this is the big casino now. And what he's going to prove is that the FBI lied in the FISA warrants, and they lied to Congress, and they lied to everybody about what they knew about Steele's behavior. This is the walls are beginning to close in on the FBI fraudsters.
Okay, and we talked, Sarah, a lot about an avalanche cascading down. This is only a small part. By the way, what is taking Michael Horowitz? Michael Horowitz has like 700 people working for him. When do we get this FISA report finished and completed? Or is it possible he's completed it and handed it over to the Attorney General and we don't know? Victoria's saying no. Why, Victoria?
Because I think that he's run into difficulty in getting some documents from Chris Wray of the FBI. And so that's going to prolong his inquiry. And that's about what he can do, an inquiry. Of course, he can't subpoena anybody and he can't indict anybody.
But he can make.
So what do you think, Sal? Are we going to get to the end of this? Are we going to see justice in our time? Or is this going to go away like Trey Gowdy's smoke and mirrors operation to make us forget about Benghazi?
Well, let's see what comes out from the interview, because as we know, as we suspect, we think that someone's lying. And however, maybe, and I think this might how it play out, that Steele might not realize that he was actually being played and being used to spread Russian disinformation himself. Now, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that probably is going to be what he may not know, that he was being used himself, and then taking that information to the FBI and to other parts of our government where it was then unverified. And that's where the problem lies. Are they going to take it to the next level if all these truths come out? I'm not sure, but someone, somewhere, if this is true, if he had false information, or was just a bunch of vignettes and stories put together that were unverified, I think someone, and I believe someone, there needs to be some justice on this. Is it going to go away? I don't know. I'd love to see what questions are asked of Steele and what the answers are. Are we ever going to see that? My guess is probably not.
Well, let me just interject my opinion on this, and this is by listening to a whole lot of other people and formulating my own opinion because of previous research that I've done. As you know, I've studied organized crime pretty fully. And this is just a rat, man. This is a guy that realizes, Steele, he realizes that, my God, this is getting big, and I'm in the middle of this. I better cut myself a deal. And let's not forget where and when he's cutting this deal. Where is Steele? Where's he from? The United Kingdom. Where is the president? In the United Kingdom. When does this come out? While the president is in the United Kingdom. This guy's cutting a deal. That's what he's doing, and everybody in the FBI, and by the way, all of this, and I will give credit where credit is due. I heard this on the Rush Limbaugh program, and I never, ever want anybody to think I'm mimicking that guy, because I'm not. I love him, and he has a lot of knowledge, but he has identified the common denominator in every one of these rats, every one of these people involved in the coup, and every agency involved with the coup. Every last one of them reported directly to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is where all the ties are, either her or the Clinton Foundation. All of the people that were on the Mueller team, all the people in the FBI that we've been talking about were avid supporters. You look at McCabe and his wife received money from the Hillary Clinton from the Clinton Foundation for her political career. I mean, this has got to be the takedown of the Clinton crime family, and my only wish is that Rudy Giuliani was on the prosecutorial team, because he's done this.
Yeah, we're going to have to see, Hutch, if it gets to them, if they are the actual, if they can
It better.
sit all the way back to them. You know, the pawns may take the hit versus the true bad guys, okay? Because the people, they shield themselves. They shield themselves with intermediaries, with other people that get them information. And maybe they aren't there's go-betweens. You know how things work. They're very shielded.
No, I do. You're right. But the difference is that you and I could never have this conversation 20 years ago with the amount of information that is available to us as it is right now. We know that the Clinton Foundation was at the bottom of all this. We know that. We've been studying ourselves, researching ourselves. We see all the foreign investment into this place. Anybody who ever got anything from the Clintons in their official capacity as Secretary of State or former president or whatever, former First Lady, they all paid a price. They all donated to the Clinton Foundation. This was hundreds of millions of dollars. These are hayseeds that don't have a talent in the world other than what they're doing right now. You know, Bill Clinton probably can't change the oil in the truck. You know what I mean? But he has this gift of gab, and I just think that if they're not prosecuted and we don't say anything about it, then we deserve them not to be prosecuted. I think at the end of the day, if this comes down to a Trey Gowdy, smoke and mirrors, chaff and flares operation for a couple congressional hearings or something like that, we better come unglued. And I mean that. I do. This is, we have one chance to reset our justice system, because as it sits right now, I don't trust the FBI. I don't trust any federal government law enforcement agency other than the Border Patrol. That's the only one that I trust right now. I trust the Pittsburgh police more than I trust the FBI, and that's a fact.
Well, there's been, a lot of changeover, and I think there's got to be a lot more change that does have to happen in our intelligence agencies. And I think there's still a lot of people from the old administration there that haven't yet moved on to their life's work.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, reports are surfacing today. Rand Paul came out and let everybody know that, John Brennan's security clearance was directed to be taken by the President of the United States of America. And some GS employee at the Department of Justice said, screw you, and that communist still has a top secret security clearance, probably with compartmentability and everything. He's got the top secret clearance in the country. And the president directed them to take it. That, to me, that's firing squad stuff. I mean, it's like, what? The commander-in-chief tells you to do something and you say no? In a time like this, I think it's getting ready to hit a crescendo, I think. I hope it does. I do. Because if it doesn't, then, forget about it. If it doesn't, then just let all the Guatemalans vote and, we'll let Kamala Harris be president or whatever. It's just...
Well, the other part of this, Hutch, too, is how much do you battle this and try to make a point out of this versus, getting a Republican elected for 2020. Do we want to stoop as low as them? And, I know we want to get the wrongdoers. I know that we just simply want to live our lives and do the right thing and right some wrongs and obviously clear up what clearly has been a huge hoax for a couple of years. But at what point do we say stop? And enough's enough. We figured this all out. Go on your way. Is it that important to us that we serve justice? And
to me,
put them
where
do we draw the line at, Hutch? Do we look as bad as them? I think they're trying to, I've talked about this before, covering up their lies. I think we're starting to learn what the truth is. And once once Steele is interviewed and we start to find out the real truth, whatever it may be, then we decide, hey, what's the next move? And then we've got to put more trust in our government, Hutch, to see if they're going to do the right thing.
If it's worthy. But the thing to me is, electing a Republican president, we did that already. You know what I mean? And we got a damn good one. But the entire team behind him is fraudulent. I mean, listen to Lou Dobbs. Lou Dobbs lays it out pretty well.
The strong leader can't be undercut by his own team.
I want you to listen and the audience to watch this as we listen to so-called Republicans in the U.S. Senate revealing their true selves to the nation and working against the interest not only of the nation, but the interests of the president and all of you who voted for them.
70 million.
And we are very concerned about the additional tariffs that have been proposed.
Well, there is not much support in my conference for tariffs, that's for sure.
We already voted once to disapprove the president on the national security issue of the national emergency at the border. He then vetoed that, and then it was not overridden. Why go through that again?
Why go through that again? Well, Mr. Portman, it would be to save the national interest and your sorry hide, frankly, Senator, because that's what's at stake here. Can you believe Joni Ernst, a freshman senator? This is just an appalling display.
And McConnell needs to show some leadership. He basically needs to sit down with his guys and say, listen, we need this. This president is doing what he promised to do, what we all promised we would do if we got elected, and it's time for us to basically stand up and back him up.
Do you believe I'm overstating it to say that the republic itself is at stake here?
Listen, this Senate is very vulnerable. They would not have been saved the last time if it wasn't for Trump going out and campaigning for a number of them. And the bottom line is very precarious this next go-round. And once you start losing, and that's, it becomes a habit. And the Democrats The
Republicans on Capitol Hill should be well practiced. Let's just see how Chuck Schumer, the minority leader of the Senate, is reacting to the day's events and the perfidy of the GOP. Let's see that full screen. It is clear that lots of people in the administration didn't agree, and I believe that he will back off when faced with the opposition among his own Republicans. Business, Ed, business. The Chamber of Commerce threatening the President of the United States with lawsuits. The Chamber of Commerce financing a revolt in his own party. And by the way, the sorry Republicans in the Senate remembered where they got their checks from, and they're doing Tom Donahue's bidding. I wonder, do you suppose the Mexican foreign minister, before meeting with the Speaker of the House, went over to talk to Tom Donahue first about the border?
Could very well, could have been driven up there by him. But at the end of the day here, again, this is a time for everybody to basically step up and support this president. This is a critical time for this presidency. It's a critical time for this country. And if somehow we lose this battle here, how are you going to deal with the Chinese? How are you going to deal with the Russians? How are you going to deal with the Mexicans? Now's the time for this president to have all the strength that he needs and to execute his
It is also time to let your senators, your elected representatives, know exactly how you feel, because if you think that the forgotten man and woman is somehow going to be regarded by these rhino Republicans in the Senate who are willing to betray the president, who for many of them was the difference between victory and having a seat in the Senate and being on to another job, of course, lower paying and certainly less prestigious than U.S. Senator. We see how prestigious it is. Please let all of your elected representatives know how you feel.
And I'll tell you, Senator Pat Toomey heard numerous pissed off tweets from me today. This is the part that scares me about your solution, Sal. I don't think that the Republican Party is worthy. They're not going to pull us out of this. If they did, we would already be out of it, and we wouldn't have this massive. There's Obama officials that are now coming out in the news on the mainstream media saying this is an emergency at the border. And the Republican Party is the reason we haven't done anything down there. These people have blocked everything. Lou Dobbs, and thank God that he's on there, because before Lou Dobbs, the only place you could hear this was the conservative treehouse, was Sundance. And if you're not following that blog, you need to. The conservative treehouse, the Last Refuge, at the Last Refuge on Twitter. He's been calling it out for years, but nobody. This is the first time I ever heard anybody that was on the quote-unquote mainstream media, Lou Dobbs, clearly define what the problem is, and the problem is U.S. Chamber of Commerce, not to be confused with your local Chamber of Commerce. This is the United States Chamber of Slave Labor Commerce. These are the people that want all your Chobani yogurt to be made by Muslim immigrants in the Midwest, and they want all your Hormel foods and all your chicken and everything else to be made by illegal Mexicans that make $10 an hour with no benefits. I don't have a whole lot of faith in the Republican Party. Sal, I'm sorry. That's just where I am right now.
I hear you. And, part of this tariff situation is part of a negotiating strategy, and you got to dig in. And sometimes taking this type of strategy is not probably taking keen to these middle of the road Republicans. I mean, this is a tough strategy. It's going to cost people some money. It's going to cost real dollars if the tariff is as high as he's talking about, 25%, I believe.
That's hold on. That's monthly incremental raises of 5% a month. It starts at 5%.
Okay, well, as high as 25%, correct?
In 6 months, in 6 months or 5 months.
It's going to start to be serious.
Sure,
and
sure.
And it's going to affect us. But will it make the point? I think it's part of a negotiating strategy. Maybe he put it out there to have people, hey, this is a serious problem. Maybe they will get on board once they realize that it's that serious and we need to do something.
No, true. And I'm trying to do this on the side here if I can find it. There it is. I'm just going to make the difference. Mick Mulvaney was on Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace, and he pretty much delineated People that are making the argument, I'm not going to play it, but people that were making the argument, like you are, in a trade background, don't get the point that this is not a trade issue. This is an illegal immigration national security issue, not to be confused with the MCS, whatever it is, the Mexican and Canadian agreement with the United States. This is something that is being done because the Republicans in Congress and the Democrats, but when we had the majority, the Republicans could have fixed this, and they didn't. Their refusal to act leaves the president little option when it comes to 100,000 people coming across the border a month, or whatever. If you look at the graph of the difference between illegal immigrants detained in the first month of the Trump presidency and now, it looks like a heart attack. The yellow line goes straight up. You know what I mean? There's people, like I said before, in the Obama administration that are trying to sound the alarm that this is a real serious emergency, a national security emergency, and the president isn't doing this for trade purposes. He's doing it to try to stop the bleeding at the border. At least that's the way he explains it.
Sure, and is this the thing that motivates people? Is this what
Mexico was in the house in 15 minutes after he made that?
Yeah, is this the thing that makes them act? But is this also the thing that makes our lawmakers act? Does it make them get on board? Does it make them want to act and do something? I don't know. I hate to say I don't know, but I don't know. What if this doesn't get them to act? What does?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, all I can tell you is please take Lou Dobbs' advice and please contact your Republican senators. If you have Democrat senators, don't worry about them. They're lost. They don't care about the country. They hate the country. But the Republican senators, if you have any Republican senators that you can reach, please tweet, Facebook, email, call, fax, anything you can do. We have to get these people behind the president, or it doesn't matter if we take back the House and the Senate. What does it matter if you have people like this that are more worried about the Koch brothers and about the U.S. Chamber of Commerce than they are about you? Because clearly they are not representing you if you voted for Donald Trump. And most of these states, these senators that were elected or reelected in 2016 and 2018, most of them received less votes than President Trump did in their states. Think about that. They're second fiddle. This country is about making America great again, regardless of Orange Man bad or anything like that. I have to shift gears. Any final comments on this subject?
No, let's. I agree, Hutch. You got to reach out to your senator, find out who they are if you don't, and become active.
That's
Give them
right.
a call.
There's only two. There's only two in every state. Get to know the Twitter handle of your Republican senator, and blow them up on Twitter, man.
Go to Senate. Go to Senate.gov. You can look up your senators right there. It's in the upper left-hand corner. You can find your senators. Now,
Radio Norway, who's in the chat room, my esteemed main co-host on Mondays and Fridays, is going to like this. Trevor Loudon, a good friend of the show for years, as a matter of fact, has come out with a list of 2019 socialists and communists in the United States Congress. And Sal, I'm just going to go down this list, and then I'm going to pause for a minute because there's a little common denominator here. And I would, Norway likes to say that we are being exterminated in the United States. And one of the problems that I have is diversity. I'm not a big diversity guy. I, feel that the old school immigrants like we've seen in our lifetimes here, living here, the Italians and the Eastern Europeans, they came here and, assimilated beautifully is one thing. But some of these other ones, these Johnny-come-latelys, these second-generation Americans from other countries with parents with backgrounds in socialist and communist countries were not properly schooled by said parents. I'm going to just go through a list of communist representatives in the United States Congress, and I want you to see if you notice what I noticed. Raul Grijalva, Democrat, Arizona, worked closely with the Communist Party USA since at least 1993. A self-described Alinskyite traveled to Cuba in 2015. Amy Barra, Democrat, California. Nancy Pelosi, Barbara Lee. You know, Barbara Lee has traveled to Cuba more than 20 times. Ro Khanna, Democrat, California. Salud Carbrial, long history with Democrat Socialists of America. Judy Chu, Democrat, California, heavily involved with the now defunct pro-Beijing Communist Workers' Party. Raul Ruiz, Democrat, California, worked closely with the Workers' World Party in Massachusetts. Karen Bass, Maxine Waters, Joe Courtney, Rosa DeLoro, Democrat, Connecticut, worked extremely closely with the Communist Party USA. Jim Himes, Kathy Castor, John Lewis, Tulsi Gabbard, Democrat, Hawaii, worked with Democrat Socialist of America members throughout her political career. Bobby Rush, Jesus Choi Garcia, Democrat, Illinois. Danny Davis, Jan Schakowsky. She's the wife of the guy that orchestrated the Trump supporters being beat up at the rallies. Dave Lobzak, Democrat, Iowa, worked with Socialist Party USA. John Yarmuth, Jamie Raskin, Jim McGovern, Ivana, where are we at here? Ivana Presley, Andy Levin, Rashida Tlaib, Democrat, Michigan, Democrat Socialist of America. Betty McCollum, Ilhan Omar, supported by Democrat Socialist of America controlled groups, Our Revolution and National Nurses United, reportedly a self-described Democrat socialist. Benny Thompson, William Lacey Clay, Greg Meeks, Grace Meng, Democrat, New York, very close to the pro-Beijing Asian Americans for Equality, also active in the radical Korean American organization. Nydia Velasquez, Democrat, New York, Democrat Socialists of America, welcomed Fidel Castro to Harlem in 1995. Yvette Clark, Jerry Nadler, Jerry Jowls Nadler. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez La Cucaracha, a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. Jose Serrano, Democrat, New York, close ties to the Communist Party USA and Democrat Socialists of America, was a strong supporter of Venezuelan dictator Hugo Chavez. G.K. Butterfield, Marcy Kaptur, Earl Blumenauer, Steve Cohen, Sylvia Garcia, Democrat, Texas. Eddie Bernice Johnson, Mark Veasley, Lloyd Dodgett, Pramila Jayapal, Democrat, Washington, involved with Freedom Road Socialist Organization connected groups for many years. Mark Pocan, Gwen Moore, Eleanor Holmes Norton. The common denominator to me, there's two of them. One is black nationalists. The other is they're foreigners. They have foreign backgrounds. Now, if you don't see that, you're brainwashed. I mean, I know I'm not supposed to say things like that, but it's clear to me when I look at that, These are people that have backgrounds and family in socialist countries that are trying to bring that here. And they're doing a damn good job of it. Maybe I'm a little, I don't know, crazy, but to me, more than half of them might have motivations that are outside our country. Am I nuts?
No, Hutch, you're not nuts. They were educated in likely socialist countries and have socialist leanings. Now, all of them appear also, 9 of those names are all in California, and we know what goes on in California.
Of course.
And, the other common thing is the Democratic Socialists of America. That was a common thread for all of them.
Absolutely.
And is the largest socialist organization in the United States.
And where is it headquartered?
You tell me.
Chicago.
And we believe, I'm reading directly from their website, that working people should run both the economy and society democratically. That means it's up to someone to decide how much you earn, how much you have to work, how much you should pay for this. They don't want the free market economy to work at all. They want a few select people to make the rules for everyone.
And what is the bedrock? Boy, this is going to piss people off. What is the bedrock of the American community? And I mean, it just is what it is. It is. Oh boy, this is going to set fireworks off. It's the white male. You look at that D-Day presentation and get me some percentages, and I'm going to tell you what is the biggest enemy of these people right now. It is the white male. They are focusing all their lasers on that. They are trying to feminize them. They are trying to make them feel, and I have kids in school right now, they're trying to make them feel like that it's wrong for them to be there, that they have this phony white privilege. Just a regular kid going to school trying to get along, and that's their enemy. They are fundamentally trying to destroy our norms here, and it's unwarranted. Good.
I don't think those young men at D-Day were thinking about any privilege at all.
No.
I think what they were thinking was the privilege, the ultimate sacrifice they were going to make for this country to allow us to have all our freedoms here, to allow us to have our liberty here, and really to defeat evil that wanted to take over the entire world. That just wasn't about France.
Right. And like I said,
over the whole world, he wanted world domination.
And we know the end of the story, but at that time they didn't. They did not know that we were going to win. They had no idea. They didn't. As a matter of fact, it was, in my opinion, it was divine intervention that we did win. I mean, you look at what our military posture was, our order of battle at the time. We went against Nazi Germany, who had by far superior armor. Their armor was so much better than ours. We ran into them. Our tanks were made in Detroit, the arsenal of democracy that couldn't bail anybody out right now the way it is. It took 3 Sherman tanks, gas-powered, by the way, gasoline engines. It took 3 to take 1 Tiger tank out. We should have never won. But, again, I believe in divine intervention. Let's go to Oregon and welcome Marlene to the program. Hello, Marlene.
Hey, Hutch. I just got to thinking, speaking of people trying to be victims and blaming the white male and all this kind of stuff, our good old little capital up there about an hour north of me, up in Salem, as the Oregon moved to track down on racially motivated 911 calls. Gee whiz.
How about that?
Predominantly white civilians calling the police on black people about everyday activities like napping or barbecuing. Gee. Whoopee. And then the victims of these police calls would be able to sue the person for up to $250.
It's unreal, man. It's crazy.
It's stupid. And then here's here's the funny part. The person who started this, I guess I can't catch the first name. Oh, Janelle Bynum. She's the one of Republicans. This isn't a Republican in the House. This is worse. And she proposed the legislation after she, I guess, was the victim of this whole thing. She was canvassing door to door for her reelection campaign last year. And I guess somebody got all freaked out that they thought she was suspicious. I'm like, give me a break. I mean, you can't make this silly stuff up.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what it is? It's funny, but I get perplexed with this because white people, stop feeling like you're responsible for everything wrong in the world. Don't buy that bullshit. Come on, man.
I agree with you. I agree.
You look at the film of D-Day, and you tell me how many Muslims were in. I mean, that's wrong.
There was none.
You know what I'm saying? No, there was, but they were in battalions in the rear in support functions. But that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to perpetuate any of that. All I'm saying is, don't give them this narrative. Don't even consider it. I mean, have you seen the college admission diversity scores they're going to go with now?
Yes.
I mean, you talk about how do we make a country as stupid as possible. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. You take the scores and throw them out.
That whole thing.
You throw the scores out and out.
Diversity scores and other such baloney.
Right. I mean, the English language won't even resemble what it is now. What's left of it? What's left of it now?
Yeah, I get it. Yep.
Man, this time goes quick. I only got 11 more minutes.
I know.
Left. What happened?
I know.
I'm gonna have to do a 3 hour. I'm gonna have to do a 3-hour show. I don't know if I can handle that.
You should.
Man,
maybe you could do it on Friday. Maybe just one day a week. Let's just do it on Friday.
You know, everything Marlene says ends up happening too, man. Now she added another hour. She added another hour on my work day. You better talk to Norway.
Oh, goodness.
Hey, I got plans, Hutch. I got plans. Don't extend it another hour.
No, not tonight. Not tonight.
I'm gonna be in the doghouse tonight.
Hey, you're a professional radio talk show host.
We don't.
No, we don't. But you have to make sacrifices when you're a professional radio talk show host. But,
yes, sir. I will.
No, we're not going to do it. All right, Marlene, I got to let you go here.
Okay.
Thanks for calling.
Much.
All right.
Good night.
All right. So yeah, it's just it's ridiculous. Let me see and look and see the stories I'm not going to be able to cover tonight because I might carry them over. At least that one I'm going to. But all right, we're gonna hit this one real quick because I mentioned it earlier. This is by Selwyn Duke from the American Thinker. If you're not following the American Thinker, you need to. If you like some cerebral reading, there are many articles there and at frontpagemagazine.com that are extensive and very good. But one of the things that I talk about, and I wish I'd have done this when Stacy was on because she's been hearing me say this for 10 years. Words are so important. You've already lost the immigration battle if you say this. And they're conditioned responses. And conditioned responses are funny things. One of them, the statement that they're probably all nice people, often used when discussing illegal migrants, is also a dangerous thing. They're not illegal migrants. Damn it, they're illegal aliens. See, he did it right in the first paragraph, first sentence of the program, of the article. That very line was uttered reflexively by Fox News pundit Tucker Carlson Monday night while discussing how 1% of Guatemalans have left for our country in just this last year. Was that like Pepsi or what was that? Some beer?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, just I'm just closing the door.
Okay.
I got a birthday party to go to after this.
You got a good microphone. Good microphone. But that very line was uttered reflexively by Fox News pundit Tucker Carlson Monday night while discussing how 1% of Guatemalans have left for our country in just the last year. It's a qualifier reflecting that one has been put on the defensive, a losing position. And that is what I meant with my comments about white people. I don't give a damn about white supremacy or all that. It's all BS. But I'm telling you, you cannot win a fight if you come out with the gloves over your face.
You know what, Hutch? Some of these people are not nice people.
No.
Some of these people are not nice people. Some of these people are coming into this country to cause harm.
And if you listen to some of this, no, this isn't an attack on Carlson, who's the best mainstream cable news and commentary host in the business, and I agree with that. Rather, it's a cautionary tale that an intrepid culture warrior such as Carlson can be conditioned, just like the white people I was talking about, to behave defensively when he should be unabashedly taking the offense, which is the best defense, and it speaks volumes about the effectiveness of leftist conditioning. And that's what I'm saying. That's what I've been saying for 10 years. The quoted statement is illogical. No large group contains members who are all nice people. I don't care what kind. I don't care if you have lily white people from sea to shining sea. They are not all nice people. Moreover, as Carlson himself pointed out last year, citing data from the U.S. Sentencing Commission, illegals do, unsurprisingly, commit an inordinate amount of crime. Nice people? It follows that those migrating illegally, making a conscious decision to violate another nation's sovereignty and laws, would include an inordinate number of not-so-nice people. And with that, I will ask you for your final comments, Sal, and how can people get in touch with you? And then I'm going to play a clip to close us out.
All right, final comments. Yeah, we have to keep our eye on this illegal immigration situation. It is a very serious situation at the border. You ought to try to, get across to your elected officials that this is a serious issue. Reach out to them as well. Don't be afraid to voice your opinion and let them know that you want to have a secure border. There's nothing wrong with that. Why did all of a sudden we become a border of open, a nation of an open border where we don't defend our own sovereignty? I don't understand. Reach out to your elected official, express that opinion. And, Tucker, unfortunately, got played a little bit, perhaps.
Yeah, he grew up. He's in Washington, D.C. He lives in D.C. I mean,
he's smoother than that. He's not afraid to talk. And I'd like to, take a look at this back a little bit more and get a little bit more context to see what he was saying. But it sounds like he did get snookered a little bit there and took a step back where he usually doesn't. How can you reach me? You can reach me at Twitter at Sal, S-A-L, @AT, Cold War Radio, and that would be CWR. You can also email me at sal@cwr@gmail.com. Both great places to reach me. I just started my Twitter account, sent a few tweets out, Wellness for the GoFundMe page, Hutch. Really found that story to be quite disheartening, but I hope something good comes out of this, and the young person gets a good start in life, despite perhaps being at a disadvantage. But maybe this event could also make them stronger as well, and they make the most of the opportunity it's given them in life.
It's gonna turn Orlando into Iron Man too, man. God bless them both. And let me ask you, are you having fun?
Absolutely having fun. I really enjoy. 2 hours went by like it was nothing,
didn't it?
And now I'm ready to party.
All
because
right.
I got a young woman downstairs. I have some baked goods downstairs. I have some candles, so I got to go light some candles and do a little bit of singing. So I'm going to have some more fun. I have fun now, but I'm going to even have some more fun, and I'm going to have a lot more fun.
All right, Sal. Thank you very much for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to leave you, and you're doing a great job, by the way. I want to leave you with a tribute to the men that participated in the landings at Normandy 75 years ago. This is the 74th reunion of these people at Normandy, but I'll tell you, the associated video is at steelcityresistance.com under the video page. And I got so upset watching this. I mean, and I'm going to admit the tears were flowing, man. I mean, I went through a bunch of towels. And these people, God bless their souls. And they're almost gone, folks. They're almost gone. And what Stacy said at the beginning of the show, if we don't teach our children, this legacy will be gone as well.
Let me take you back 74 years. We are the warriors of the greatest generation. The generation that has taken their final curtain calls and soon will be leaving this stage of life. Look at these old warriors gathered here today. They're yesterday's heroes. We were soldiers once and young, the vibrant youth of that time. Men who were here in those terrible battlefields 74 years ago. In combat, we found the closest brotherhood we would ever know. We found selflessness. We found we could love the other guy in the foxhole more than ourselves. We found that in war, men who love life would give their lives for us. The war may have ended 74 years ago, but for us and the families of those who died in that conflict, it will never end. Not a man among us would want to go through it again. The only regret for all our friends and comrades who never returned.
We're here today to honor Roy Tallhelm, who is the youngest American soldier killed and buried here in World War II, 17 years old.
We come to remember and honor the 400,000 American soldiers who died in World War II. We remember and honor the thousands of soldiers and sailors in Veterans Hospital across our nation, their minds and bodies destroyed by the horrors of war. What we did, what we experienced, represents the love of our country, the love of our religious faiths, the love of our fellow citizens, and our love of freedom. We saw what a lack of love and a lack of freedom could do. We saw the concentration camps. We saw the slave labor camps. We saw the prisoner of war camps. We saw the vile inhumanity of man against man. Tears still well in my eyes. I remember all the friends I left on the field of battle in towns and cities of Europe. Were you a hero in the war, Poppy? My grandchildren sometimes ask. No, but I was a company of heroes. From where, oh God, came such men as these? The warriors of the greatest generation. The generation has taken their final curtain call, and soon we all will have left. The battle smoke has fled. Now only memories and the dead. Thank you. May God bless you. May God bless America. We feel the spark in us. We got the golden touch. There's royal blood in us. Chosen for this. When darkness overcomes, there's still a light in us. Destiny rising. Chosen for this.
is one of the best moments of our life because he saved us. And this is very, very important. So thank you. Thank you.
We do.
Thank you. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.